Hello everyone, this is Taryn with Wonderfully Made Handcrafting, and today I'm working on day 2 of ByTheWell4God's The Heavenly Host. Now in today's video, I'm taking some ledger paper that I've already sized down to fit exactly in my interleaved Bible, and I'm creating on that first, and then I will glue it all together in the end to my interleaved Bible page. My Bible is getting really chunky. I think this is the last month I'm going to be working in this specific Bible, and so this makes it a lot easier to just work on a page outside of my Bible and then glue it down all at once at the end. So I'm using some Crypt grit paste right now with the Brickwork stencil from By The Well. This grit paste is amazing. It comes out in the fall. It's from Tim Holtz, and it is like a gray base color with some black flecks, but you can dye it with distress oxides or distress inks. Today I used aged mahogany and fired brick as my colorants for this, and I love how this turns out with those black flecks in the brickwork. It works amazing and looks like real mini bricks on this ledger paper. So I'm placing that in 3 separate places on this ledger paper, making sure to use all that excess right there. And then I'm going to let this dry a little bit before I work more on the background. And once this grit paste dries, it actually dries even darker than it is wet. I'm very happy with how this came out. And then I'm going to take some tea-dyed distress spray stain and also some antique linen and spray this over the background to make this even more of a darker kind of coffee stained look. This ledger paper is from a house of books. It is from 1934, so it's obviously already vintage, but this is going to add some more colors to the background that I really love. Now that that's all dry, I want to start working on my cluster, and I definitely wanted to include this obedient flashcard. This has the verses Philippians 2:7-8, which is talking about Jesus Christ, and it says, being found in human form, he humbled himself by becoming obedient to the point of death. And so I want to use some of these mica tiles in the background. I think it'll go nicely with the stained glass look. This is real mica, and you can dye it with alcohol ink. So I'm using ginger and latte are the 2 colors I am using here, and I'm just using that little blower and spreading the coloring around and making sure that I have some differentiation in the colors and some nice alcohol ink kind of spots on the background. If you've never worked with mica tiles, I highly suggest you grab some. They are a little bit expensive, but what's great about them is that you can rip them and tear them and make all this kind of shards of glass look, but also you can peel them like real mica, and so you can get multiple layers out of one piece of mica, so you're really getting a good bang for your buck. So here I am grabbing some mummy cloth from Tim Holtz. He also releases this every fall, and usually you can pick it up throughout the year as well. I really like this stuff and actually need to pick up some more because it is one of my favorite textures to add to a page. This is obviously quite a bit of mummy cloth, and I don't plan to use it all. I just wanted to cut enough to see what it would look like in the background. I also decided to round the corners of this flashcard and also scuff up the edges a little bit with my scissors. I will also add a little bit of walnut stain around the edges of that, just like I always do, to add some antiquing. And then I'm going to grab some of the craft text that I had extra from creating my journal cover. Now, if you didn't see my journal cover video, that video is really fun with some different techniques with this craft text. But this is basically a fabric paper that you can dye, you can throw it in the wash and make it look really leathery. This started off as like a creamy ivory white, but I decided to dye it, and I just added a little bit more ground espresso to this piece just to add some more depth to it. And then I'm going to emboss it just like I did on the pockets and hinge of my journal cover. I'm actually using the same exact embossing folder called Tapestry from Tim Holtz. This is a new one, and definitely one to grab if you haven't yet. And then I'm going to use the statue Foundry Wax. I really liked this technique doing it on my journal cover, so I decided to do it again. This page is basically how much texture can I add to one Bible journaling page, and so the more texture, the better. So with this Foundry Wax, I've found that the best way to apply it is just with your finger. I don't care, it doesn't get too messy because it wipes pretty much right off. And sometimes your finger doesn't get it perfect and you have to be okay with that. Sometimes you get kind of globs of gold, but once you hit it with the heat tool, it really gives this lovely gilded look. So as you can see here, I am working on my layers. Now you can't tear craft text no matter how hard you try. I just tried again, but I want that torn kind of look, so I'm wiggling my scissors as I cut that. I just want it kind of peeking out behind that flashcard, and then I will have that alcohol inked mica tiles in the back as well. I did tear that a little bit more, so I have a top and bottom piece. And then I'm going to dye this mummy cloth with some of that antique linen and also ground espresso to get this nice, darker, rich color. Now with the mummy cloth, I want to make sure it's nice and dry before I adhere it to the page. Number one, so that it glues or sticks. I will also use staples to adhere it. But also because if it's wet at all, it'll add ink marks to my paper and I don't want that. But luckily, mummy cloth does dry really fast because it has so many holes in it. And I found that I like ripping apart the mummy cloth a little bit. It spreads out really nicely and creates this lovely look. So I'm adding that to two corners of my flashcard and just tucking it in together, making sure that I like my cluster before I glue anything down. With the mica tiles, I'll just use my liquid Barely Arts glue in places that won't be seen once I put the flashcard down. Now I did make a little oops here. I thought originally I was going to just glue down that embossed craft text to my flashcard, but then I realized that I really wanted that flashcard to stand out a little bit more and not just be, you know, smushed into the whole cluster. And so I'm going to add some foam tape to that. So I just made sure I had the right placement down, and then I'm going to take my tiny attacher and staple some of that mummy cloth down on that side, and then on this side I'll just kind of tuck it behind the mica tile and then over it as well, and then glue it down in the bottom corner. Now with that mummy cloth, sometimes it doesn't want to stay with some glue, and so you kind of have to hold it for a little bit to make sure that it sticks. My favorite way is just using my tiny attacher, but sometimes you can't hide those staples, so glue is sometimes necessary. So for here, I am using my scrapbook.com foam tape. I am running out. I probably need to pick some up, but I love this foam tape. I try to get the widest one I can because I can always cut it down to whatever size I need. And now that that is placed, I want to add a couple little extras to this page. I have some butterflies from the ephemera. I even have some of these mini butterflies that I thought about adding. Ultimately, I decide on not including the mini ones just because they were getting lost in everything, and so the bigger ones definitely hold a better place on this page. And so I've picked two of these out, both of them being in warm colors to go along with this page. I also have two florals that I decided to add to this cluster. Now the one to the right, I originally thought I was going to use, but it really got lost in the ledger paper. I was trying to see if I added some walnut stain around the edges, if it would look better, but it just, I don't know, it got kind of lost and it wasn't vibrant enough for what I had going on here. So I ultimately decided to go through my ephemera again, and I found the perfect orangey yellow flower to add to that bottom right hand corner. So I will fussy cut that orangey yellow flower out and add some walnut stain around the edges of that one as well, so it matches everything else on this page. And then I'm going to grab some black thread that I have, and I'm going to make just little nests of black thread and add that underneath each floral. It really adds this nice black look. I feel like this page needed just a hint more of black, and I decided to add that under the floral pieces. I just think it really completes this. And then I'm going to work on gluing down these butterflies. Now for the butterflies, I want them only glued down on the bodies. I want to be able to move their wings up a little bit so that they're propped up. Obviously, they will get smushed down as my Bible pages press against each other, but at least for right now, and when I flip to this page, I can kind of fluff up the wings a little bit. So you'll see here, I'm just double checking that I don't want any of those mini butterflies. I know 3 is like the perfect rule number for adding things, and so I was trying to get a third one in, but I really just like how these 2 look. Just by themselves, that little one was just way too little, so this works fine for me. Now to complete this page, I'll add some watercolor splatters. Now I keep all my Daniel Smith watercolors on a little key ring. This has been the best way for me to keep them from every kit from ByTheWell4God. I've decided to use some brown from an old Christmas kit, and I will splatter that all over the page, and I'll let it dry and then add it to my Bible with some score tape. So that is it, guys. I hope you enjoyed this process video and all the texture that I added. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. You can also find me over on Instagram at Wonderfully Made Handcrafting. I'll try to link everything I use down below in the description, and I hope you have a wonderful day, guys. Bye.